I'm Libby Motika, moderator of the Mosaic series. The panorama of scenes that we just saw at Pacific Palisades stirs up memories for all of us. Having spent over 20 years as an editor at the Palisadian-Post, I came to understand the value of a healthy and vibrant community. Looking back, I like to imagine that I am walking through the town before the devastating wildfire and recall the people and events that gave life to our lost community. As I pass Pearson Playhouse, I recall the plays I reviewed for Theater Palisades that brought the page to the stage, and through the hard work and vigorous training of all the volunteer company. I noticed the first drought-tolerant garden on Via de la Paz that highlighted for the Pacific Palisades Garden Club's annual tour. As I passed Corpus Christi Church, I remember all the interfaith Thanksgiving programs that were hosted on a rotating schedule by the churches and the synagogue in town. As I round the block, I remember sitting in on the grandparents and kids' story time at the Palisades Branch Library. But these are my memories, and tonight we focus on the history and memories of the community, recalled from 4 different perspectives. We thank the Palisades Historical Society for their partnership with the Conservancy on its Mosaic series. You'll hear about them later in the program. Throughout the program, you can ask questions of the panel by using your Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to those questions at the end of the program. You will also notice there's a closed caption option at the bottom of your screen. We begin with a short history of Pacific Palisades, brought by Randy Young, the curator of the Pacific Palisades Historical Society, who brings a well-informed view of the community. Randy is a historian, author, and activist who has lived in the Rustic Canyon neighborhood for 53 years. Welcome, Randy.
I started doing histories on the Palisades in the 1970s to preserve the community. And I've collected images of the community throughout the years. This picture right here from 1877 kind of says what the tabula rasa was, where nothing had been built, where you don't see any hand of man. And I always say that each chapter of the community was kind of like, oh, there goes the neighborhood. Next. This is a Rogerio Rocha. He's one of the Tongvan tribe. In 5,000 years ago, their people came to the landscape of the Palisades. And what happened was they had a really kind of an amazing community and culture. But they were really very heavily impacted and badly impacted when the European culture came in the early 1770s. That first European intrusion into their culture really broke up their communities. They were herded into missions and incredibly impacted, and many died. In fact, the disease ran rampant throughout California. Next. The next group were the Spaniard conquistadors who took the land and started to develop it as they would in Europe. And so it was basically the land was divided among ranchos, and these ranchos were run to run cattle and to develop areas so people could live. This is the Marquez family, Manuel and Pascual, in about 1899. And this image to me kind of shows how very tough it was to live in these ranchos. They had to make everything themselves, and be self-sufficient. And they would be like 4 or 5 miles away from any other, settlement. Next. But they were starting to be moved aside by in the 1850s when the land went to the United States. Everything started to be industrialized. It wasn't agrarian, it became industrial. This is bottom of Santa Monica Canyon, about 1894 or 5. And you can see there's a train and a giant pier. The Long Wharf was built by Collis Huntington to be the port of LA. Others in LA felt otherwise, and so a battle ensued. But for a while, the shipping traffic went heavily through our community. Next. What the Marcuses did, though, is even they took advantage of having many people come, and they opened a bathhouse. And I want you to see the variety of people, ethnic groups, was quite an array. This was a culture that was beginning to develop the beach culture. Next. But another group that came around 1911 came from the East Coast, and it was people wanting to make movies. And so Thomas Ince set up his movie branch, and he started to do films on the Palisades as a background. In fact, many early Western was kind of concocted. The idea of a movie studio was first in the Palisades. This is a Keystone Cop shot here. Next. Another thing that started to happen about 1912 was the land started to go from the rancho to developers. The Marcuses and Reyeses sold off large parcels of the land, in this case, the Santa Monica Land Water Company. And what were kind of bucolic trails with very nothing, no roads made. In fact, here all you see is a structure in the back. That was the original schoolhouse that was built in 1894. This picture is about 1912. It's before they started to grade the roads in. Next. And so what happens is as these properties were sold, the developers would come out here where this wagon is, right, is downtown Pacific Palisades. So you can see it's just open land. It had no, just agrarian, and it was, to me, gorgeous. To me, the loss that we have of this beautiful open space is too bad, but it did make the wonderful community of the Palisades. Next. In January of 1922 was the original founding of the town. And what it was a group of Methodists who wanted to build a Chautauqua, a kind of a system of education built around communities on the East Coast. They wanted to have the same model done here. And so they wanted to have a community that they could control. They wanted to develop it as a Christian community and one that was based on education, and kind of also have certain areas where the open land was protected in areas. Next. These Methodists were tough. They were no nonsense. This picture to me is fabulous in that they look like they're about to go bust up a still. They did not want to have drinking and carousing and dancing. Next. Their ideal was really pretty vivid. They wanted to make, this was 1922, this was after World War I. They wanted to make a monument to peace. The nightmare of World War I was fresh in their minds. And many of the people who helped make this town were veterans. And so they hired well-known architects. One of the architectural groups they hired was the Olmsted brothers, and they designed the community. If you notice, the downtown community is really away from the coast. They didn't want to have a coastal area. They wanted to have residential along the coast. The commercial area was to be a mile away. Next. The original inhabitants were in tents at Founders Oak Island, which is on Haverford. And this is Zola Clearwater. She became the editor of the newspaper in the 1930s. But they were one of the earliest residents of the community. So here they are next to their tent. By the way, women were always very important to the community. This is the meat market and grocery. This is the first commercial district, and it was in Temescal Canyon. These two structures survived the fire, by the way, and still exist. Next. This is Peace Hill. This is at the top of Via de la Paz. And they're looking down toward what they're just beginning to develop. This is Easter Sunrise Service, 1922. And you can see everybody has come out in their cars, and there's only 2 houses in the whole shot. It is quite extraordinary. Next. They were very kind of worried about one of their neighbors, and probably for good reasons. Here they are marching, and they're probably going to go to the edge of the canyon to pray against those evil folks. Next. In fact, one of the major groups was the Women's Christian Temperance Union, and they were tough and they were no nonsense. And the group they were very worried about was next. The Uplifters Club. The Uplifters were a club of gentlemen, the shakers and movers of LA, and they loved to, I guess, dress up in drag and do lots of plays and productions. But they also, because this was the time of Prohibition, they also loved to go and get heavily drunk and do nefarious things. Next. And really, these were the shakers and movers. These were the Chandlers. They were the Bannings. And they purchased a clubhouse. Next. And this structure here was where the Uplifters had 200 acres in Rustic Canyon that was their Valhalla. And I asked some of the Uplifters if they could hear the wonderful neighbors, the Methodists, praying for their souls. And they said, no, we wouldn't have heard it. We were too drunk. Next. The community of the Palisades began to grade out all the streets. What's kind of interesting, you're seeing that somebody once referred to the Palisades as the final cul-de-sac of the city of Los Angeles, at the edge of the ocean. And it became a place where people would come and go to the beach and enjoy the beautiful mountains. Next. They started, the Methodists started to build their business district. This is the Santa Monica Land and Water Company building. Next. As you can see, it's a very classical revival, and it's a beautifully built structure. Next. It was dedicated November of 1924 and became the center point of the whole community. This is the most important historical structure in the town. Next. Also, they started to build facilities to use the beach. This is at the bottom of Pochero Canyon. You can see PCH, and they built a mock lighthouse where the mile-long wharf used to be. Next. And the beach became extremely popular. PCH was improved. You can see in this shot all the different, the traffic was even back then. This would have been about late 1920s. You can even see a Rolls Royce to the right. It became iconic throughout the country. This beach became very famous very quickly. Next. In fact, postcards were sent from California trying to entice people to buy lots, and they played up how wonderful the beaches were. Next. Even the lifeguards were famous. This is Johnny Weissmeller, who was a lifeguard at what we always called State Beach, and that it became very much a focus, not just of our community, but of Southern California and Los Angeles. It became an icon. Next. The houses in the Palisades, everybody thinks the Palisades has always been wealthy. On the contrary, it used to be a very modest, and ministers and people who were workers and nobody fancy. They purchased the earliest structures, and you can see they're very modest. It does not look like something Crusoe would build. Next. All the literature to get people from the East Coast to come out and buy was very dynamic, and it showed the PCH, it showed the beach, and it showed modest structures amongst forested lands. Next. But all of this comes with a price. The Palisades has always been at the linchpin of nature. This is the 1938 flood. Later that year, the 1938 fire destroyed much of the community. So we've always been in peril from nature. Next. But always the community would either rebuild or just, they wanted the good life, and they did not allow the little disasters to get in their way. But there were other things on the horizon. World War II came along, and the community was heavily affected. And it really started a new chapter in the community. Next. And the new chapter, new people came in, and heavily the movie industry people, they started to kind of develop a different kind of neighborhood. This is Rod Serling, and I started with this because Rod Serling did The Twilight Zone, and much of the kind of iconography and the archetypal community they were looking at was the Palisades. They lived in the Palisades. And This, by the way, is a picture taken about 1958, and it is Rod opening Paul Revere Junior High. Next. Well, with this, the Palisades always had these fabulous neighborhoods, very tight neighborhoods, where kids were important. They loved to, dress up. And this is during Halloween. I love the mom has taken an ice cream container from 31 flavors and was helping the kids do a space theme. Next. Even here's a barbecue, but one of the people here is the mailman, who is Bob Denver. He later became Gilligan, and before then, Maynard G. Krebs. He was the town mailman. Who else would have, somebody from Dobie Gillis delivering your mail? Next. Another prominent member of the community was Ronald Reagan. He in fact, lived in about 3 different houses in the Palisades. He moved around town. I love this picture because several of people I knew, neighbors, said that Mrs. Reagan was taught how to look up lovingly at Ronald during all the whistle stops. So this is when he is running for governor, which he won. Next. But even if you have Girl Scout cookies, all you do is you get Debbie Reynolds to help you schlep your cookies. Only in the Palisades. Next. Also, we had several major, what we call honorary mayor. And so here we have Jerry Lewis. He had been robbed, and so the local newspaper had him. He chased away the robbers with his handgun. So he didn't fire, though, but he protected his house. Next. But the other thing that started to change was, in the town of the Palisades, you couldn't dance and you couldn't drink alcohol. Well, in the 1950s, that changed. There was a whole lot of dancing going on and a whole lot of drinking. So there, to many of the old timers, that was, oh, there goes the neighborhood. Next. But also what was happening is we were becoming kind of an icon for surfing. And one thing I remember is in the very early 60s, 62, 63, I remember skateboarding started to become a big thing in the town. And pretty soon, the concept of surfing on wheels started to sweep the country. This is, by the way, at Pali High. Next. But also other religions. It was only the Methodists had churches in town, and the first was the Catholic Church started to build their churches in town, and again, just to the chagrin of the original settlers. I love this picture. It shows you Catholic discipline. Next. One of the very important couple in town was Peter and Joan Graves. In fact, Joan Graves became one of the most powerful people in this town. And Peter was very supportive. He was an honorary mayor at one time, but Joan fought for zoning restrictions on height and tried to protect the character of the community. Many leaders of our community have been women. She was one of our great leaders. Next. One other leader, it was my mother. This is Betty Lou Young. She was with the Assistance League, and she took up a ukulele to schlep for a fundraiser. Betty Lou did 6 books on this area and was the expert on everything Palisades. Next. This picture here reminds me of my childhood because I grew up just around the corner here. This is where I was born into. I've lived in the community 70 years, and this picture brings back tremendous memories. Next. The community of the Palisades is always been a work in progress. It's always been kind of in the act of redefining itself. This is how I knew the community in 1956. But the recent events have completely destroyed what I remember as a community. And we were a tight community, but I think it's going to be changing, which has made me very sad. I'll end on that note. Thank you.
That was a great travel through time. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Roberta Donohue, who will remind us of the community spirit that infused a year's worth of events, celebrations, such as the annual 4th of July parade and the ho, ho, ho arrival of Santa Claus. Roberta was born and raised in the Palisades. As she was the publisher of Palisades-Post for 30 years and was an active member of the Chamber of Commerce and served as president in the year 2000. Roberta, many in the audience will be surprised to learn just how many community events attracted major enthusiasm and participation throughout the years. What were a few that were special to you?
Thank you, Libby. I have 3 events that intertwined the Palisades community with both businesses and organizations. I truly believe that this is one of the many reasons why Palisadians love their hometown. I grew up in the Palisades. My dad had a local business, and he was very much involved with the Chamber of Commerce and the Optimist Club. I saw firsthand at a young age how these events became so special, not only to me, but to my friends and our families. My most favorite and close to my heart were the Palisadian-Post's Citizen of the Year events. Back in 1946, publisher Clifford Clearwater and local businessman Eric Scudder, together, they came up with the idea to honor a local individual for their outstanding volunteer service, which resulted in a substantial benefit to the Pacific Palisades community at large. The newspaper would ask the community to write a letter nominating the person they felt was most deserving of this award. The Citizen of the Year event was an annual tradition with local officials giving speeches and handing out proclamations, a fun musical roast for entertainment, plus a beautiful award from the newspaper. Not to mention the amount of wonderful community spirit that filled the room that evening. To date, there are over 80 people that have received this prestigious recognition. These community-minded individuals dedicated a part of their life to create something significant that made a positive difference in Pacific Palisades. My second favorite event, since I was a very little kid, was the 4th of July. The fun of being in the parade in an old car representing my dad's business, then going to the park for a family picnic, enjoying the carnival rides and sitting in the bleachers to watch the fireworks, it was magical. Since 1967, the Palisades Americanism Parade Association has presented the 4th of July parade and fireworks show. This community event, which is fully funded by residents, businesses, and civic groups of Pacific Palisades has grown to become one of the best in California. Getting permits to close down Sunset from Via de la Paz to Toyopa was a game changer for the parade. Plus, finishing up the day by going to Pali High for live music to enjoy, a lineup of food trucks, and a spectacular fireworks show made you really love this community. There cannot be a better place to be. You just spent your day with family, friends, co-workers, and maybe you might run into a few old school pals. Hats off to Papa for their hard work and dedication. My third favorite was the wonderful family event that brought out the entire community. It was the Chamber of Commerce's annual Holiday Ho Ho Ho. This 65-year tradition of family fun was created by the Chamber along with the support of local businesses, celebrating the innocence of children visiting with Santa Claus. Special help came from our local fire department, for they delivered Mr. and Mrs. Claus to Swarthmore. You could hear their sirens blaring down Sunset, and the kids would start to scream. Local Palisadian and Chamber member Tim Marshall built a staging platform that looked like Santa's sleigh. Here, all the kids had their chance to whisper with the jolly man in red. I spent many years helping kids with their parents up onto that stage so they could have their private moment with Santa. Watching this was the most memorable for me. Every year, around 300 children plus families would come out for this festive evening. Back when Mort Farborough was still alive, he donated a free hot chocolate bar for everyone to enjoy. But if you knew Mort, you got the big kids' hot chocolate, and it kept your heart and tummy warm. After 30 years of involvement with the Chamber of Commerce, I hold wonderful memories in my heart. My dear friend Arnie Wishnek would agree with me that Holiday Ho 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 was the best of all the Chamber events. Without a doubt, it takes a village to make a difference and a supportive community to make a wonderful hometown. Thank you.
Roberta, I have one quick more question.
Okay.
Could you give us an example of one or two citizens of the year, especially for what they were honored?
Absolutely. I have two favorites. Rose Gilbert. She was the legendary teacher at Palisades High School who impacted generations of students, and she was lovingly known as Mama G. Rose donated $1 million to Palisades Charter House High School for classroom renovations and to build a community pool. She once had told me that she wanted all children to learn how to swim because so many kids that were bused into the Palisades did not know how, and that was her gift. She felt it was important to learn to swim. Then my second friend, Rich Wilkin. He is a local kid that grew up loving the 4th of July. He joined Papa in 1982 and has done every job that is needed to put on the parade. In 2009, he started working endless hours with city fire officials and the state fire marshal to come up with the idea of shooting fireworks from the Palisades High School quad. Hallie didn't want the fireworks to be shot over the new green turf at the stadium anymore. They still continue using the quad area for the annual fireworks. Few residents have ever been as active as Rich in so many community organizations, and few people can match his willingness to take on leadership roles.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Excellent.
You're welcome.
Now I would like to introduce Vanessa Pellegrini. Vanessa, welcome. Vanessa is the co-owner and manager of Vittorio Ristorante with her mother, Mercedes. She will tell us about the remarkable story of her immigrant family and the secret of its 40+ years in the Palisades. Welcome, Vanessa.
Hi, Libby.
Hi, Vanessa. Vanessa, first I'd like you to introduce your family. I think that's a key part of this whole story.
So I run Vittorio's with my mother, Mercedes Pellegrini, who I think everybody in the Palisades has probably had a conversation with or has sat down with, and my sister, Sabrina Kalajian. In recent years, my sister has come to work with our family a little bit more, and join the ranks of Vittorio's. My mother came here in 1969 from Brazil. She came with about $1,000 in her pocket. She did not speak English. Married my father after knowing him for 3 days and started a life together. They will be celebrating 57 years of marriage here, and she's my hero. She's everything that I've ever wanted to be and everything I've ever looked up to.
And how was it that she founded the restaurant? Did she choose the Palisades, or what was the origin of the?
So she started in our garage in Woodland Hills baking cakes. She was a baker. She comes from a long line of chefs and cooks in Brazil. And she decided to take her show on the road after a friend of hers said, "Your cakes are so good, you should really sell these." And she said, "You know what? That's a great idea. I have 2 little girls at home. It'll keep me at home working, but I can still, maybe peddle a couple cakes here and there." She decided to go out to Piponi's restaurant, which I know a lot of us know and have frequented over the years. And their manager there, Chris, said, "Listen, your cakes are so good. We'll take them, and I'll introduce you to all the restaurants in the area to help you get started."
Wow.
And took her down the West Side, Venice, Brentwood, Santa Monica, down to the Palisades, where Giovanni Mazzola was the owner of Vittorio's and had started in 1984. And they became friends, and she kept selling her cakes to him, and he finally said, "I want to go back to Italy. I don't want to be here anymore. I'd like to go home." And she said, "I don't know anything about the restaurant business." And he said, "Try it for 6 months. If you don't like it, you can leave, no hard feelings." And she said, "Okay, I'll do it." And the rest is history. 35 years later, we just celebrated 40 years, October of last year.
Wow. Wow. Speaking of that, the restaurant has been around for 40 plus years.
Yes.
What accounts, in your opinion, for its popularity and its longevity?
I think it's definitely the garlic rolls. I would say, and I've told people this, people will order the garlic rolls before they ever order anything else on the menu. And it's generational. So, you get the kids hooked, and then they bring in the parents, and then they bring in the grandparents, et cetera, et cetera. But really, the secret to our success is the people. It's the community. It's who's been there for generations. As Randy said, this has been a long time community that has come together, that is strong, that has strong traditions, that has strong roots, that keep their children here, keep their grandchildren close. They have a place to come to year after year. People who have moved across the world, across the country, across the globe, they still come back because they know that we're here, and it's a family restaurant.
What event can you recall that was remarkable in every way? Maybe it was logistics, maybe it was incredibly special occasion. What comes to mind? I'm sure there were many, but maybe you could give.
There's probably 2 that really come to mind, and that's one is our annual kids luncheon that we do for the underserved, underprivileged children in Los Angeles. And it's really a community event because we get donations, gift donations. And then we have several members of the community who are friends and family who come and help and wrap and put everything together and organize. I really could not do it without them. And it brings in, you know, these children who have never had a Christmas or who would never have a Christmas without us. It's definitely our favorite event of the year.
Wow. And that's in the restaurant.
And that's in the restaurant. We bust them in with the Sons of the American Legion, the auxiliary of the American Legion, you know, help us out. The community members, our customers, our patrons, our friends, our family, everybody donates a gift. I mean, it's spectacular. Last year we celebrated 15 years of this event. And I was running through the numbers to just kind of get some metrics on it. And we have gifted over 5,000 children, 10,000 gifts. I think we're probably in the hundreds of thousands of pieces of pizza and garlic rolls. You know, and it's just been one of those events that people look forward to every Christmas. And, you know, I know this year is going to be a little bit more difficult logistically, but I have a couple ideas, and this disaster is not going to halt 15 years of tradition for us.
Thank you. You had another one. You want another quick memory?
Our 40th anniversary party,
Uh-huh.
which was a spectacular event. I'm so glad we did it. You know, we did it with the help of our friends, Randy Young, who's on this panel, also a huge supporter of it. You know, we had people who came out of the woodwork for this to come and celebrate from us, and with us. It was logistically a little tough. We had to do a reservation system, which we normally don't do, to try to get everybody in, but thankfully we did, and it was a throwback to 1984 prices.
Oh,
With just a few menu items, and it was quite an event. It was all day on Saturday, lunch and dinner, and it was really something special.
thank you. You've really given the audience a flavor of your incredible history and restaurant. Thank you very much, Vanessa. Now, rounding out our panel, I'd like to introduce Bill Bruns, who will talk about the activism in the Palisades. Bill enjoyed a long, successful career in journalism as an editor at Life magazine, Hollywood bureau chief for TV Guide, and the editor of the weekly Palisadian-Post for 20 years. He and his wife, Pam, lived in the Palisades for 52 years before losing their home on January 7th. Bill, welcome. Bill, I'd like to hear from you about the Palisades, what I call two kinds of activism: the robust protection of our precious coast from the threat of Occidental Petroleum's plan to drill off the coast of Will Rogers, and then also about the protests that we called mauling the Palisades. So can you kind of wrap your talk around those two defenses?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. I need a little lead in just to set the scene a bit for activism.
Okay.
Because from the very beginning, activists and volunteerism have played a vital role in building Pacific Palisades and defending its natural beauty. Isolated out on the edge of the city, town leaders created two watchdog groups, the Palisades Improvement League and the Palisades Protective Association. These groups lobbied for police protection, a fire station, a school, a library, and a paved sunset from Beverly Hills all the way to the ocean. So in the 1970s, one local campaign, which was very important in helping to preserve the mountains, was we rallied to defeat the proposed Reseda to the Sea highway, which would have brought heavy traffic from the San Fernando Valley over the mountains and down through Temescal Canyon, the heart of our town, all the way to PCH. This would have been a disaster for wildlife and for Pacific Palisades, and would have opened up the mountains to development, that's for sure. So we then had the Don't Maul the Palisades campaign. Not when Rick Caruso came to town, but in 1983, when real estate developer Rohit Joshi sought to buy the landmark business block building in the heart of town. He said he wanted to demolish the historic 1924 structure and build a 3-story shopping mall with underground parking. Obviously, that didn't go over well with the population. He later admitted he was unprepared for the uproar that ensued, culminating in a mass rally on the village green that was organized by Joan Graves, wife of actor Peter Graves. Joshi backed out of the deal and the building was saved. Photos showing the remains of this once elegant building are truly disheartening in the middle of town. Meanwhile, town leaders fought for decades to secure public access to the beach and to prevent development from Santa Monica Canyon to Temescal Canyon. As a result, we can still enjoy an unobstructed ocean view as we drive along that 1-mile stretch of PCH. And we don't have to pass by 50 or 60 oil rigs that, thanks to the No Oil campaign led by Palisadians. Starting in 1970, Occidental sought to drill for oil near the mouth of Potrero Canyon, right along PCH. They argued that the United States needed this oil and that elitists in Pacific Palisades had no right to protest. The No Oil folks countered that the project would open the way to drilling into Santa Monica Bay. They also warned that Occidental would have to lay a 5-mile pipeline under the Palisades and Brentwood to an existing pipeline in the Sepulveda Pass. That was unfathomable to many people. So in 1985, the city council and Mayor Tom Bradley still went ahead and granted Occidental authority to build oil platforms at the base of the Palisades Bluffs. Drill, baby, drill, it sort of reminds me. But No Oil lawyers forced a citywide vote in 1988, and Proposition O, designed to stop the project, was victorious by a 52-48 margin. This action likely prevented oil drilling all along the Los Angeles coast and was a major accomplishment.
Wow. Palisadians have also contributed essential amenities to the town through vigorous volunteer efforts. They mounted campaigns, organized fundraisers, and received generous donations to build a new branch library and worked to convert an unsightly gas station in the village green into a peaceful patch of nature in the center of town. Could you give the audience an idea of the efforts to build the new library?
Yeah. Well, I should repeat that many residents of Pacific Palisades have long shared an ethos that to protect and strengthen the quality of life here, they had to become actively involved by initiating and supporting various grassroots campaigns. In 1972, for example, as you said, residents seized on the opportunity to buy the Standard Oil gas station property in the middle of town. Quote, a toilet seat in the middle of town, grumbled one resident, which I love that quote. They raised $70,000 to buy the land and convert it into the village green, which is still standing as a beloved community-owned park and survived the fire. So that's one great positive in our town. And in 1975, Leila and Townley Pearson donated land to Theater Palisades to build a community theater at Haverford and Temescal Canyon. After many years of fundraising, the theater opened in 1988 and became a treasured venue in town, only to burn down in the fire. And we saw the picture earlier of the mural of the young girl alongside Temescal Canyon Road, and that was very poignant. And in the late 1980s, the residents raised $750,000 in matching funds so the city could build a much-needed new gym at the recreation center. And a few years later, they raised another $1 million to build the Field of Dreams for baseball and other sports at the park. Then when we lost the YMCA pool in Temescal Canyon, Pali High English teacher Rose Gilbert donated $2 million towards construction of a 13-lane pool on campus open to the public. And well, obviously we have a lot of wealthy, generous people in the Palisades, but nevertheless, it was hard work to raise all that money for all of these campaigns. And many, many people donated 25, $50 at a time. So it was there were community-wide efforts to do this. So another major campaign, as you mentioned, was building the new upgraded branch library. The Conservancy, the community had outgrown the original 1963 building. So when a city bond issue was passed in 1999, the Friends of the Palisades Library led a campaign that raised more than $1 million to help build a much larger facility, which opened in 2003, which can be seen here. Sadly, the building burned down on January 7th, but the Friends are already working with the city to rebuild.
Thank you very much. Wow, lots of action. That bodes well for the future of Pacific Palisades, I do hope. Now it's time for your questions that I have been looking at while the program goes on. And the first couple of them are kind of specific to Randy, just to identify where some of these photos were. Randy, for example, the first photo of a mouth of a canyon, the questioner wants to know, where is that?
It's the bottom of Santa Monica Canyon. It's showing Entrada and Channel Road.
Okay.
And PCH would be to the right.
This says, I'm curious about all the famous writers who have lived in the Palisades. Might someone enlighten us? Bill, do you want to take that question?
Well, Raymond Chandler, of course, he lived in several different homes in the Palisades, including on Hartselle at one time. Mm-hmm. We had in the canyon, how
about Henry Miller?
Yeah, well, of course, Henry Miller.
Yeah.
He lived on Ocampo, I believe, or I think Ocampo. And he lived there for many years, and he would ride his bike all over town. And it was quite a popular and friendly fellow and everything.
Roberta,
Yeah.
how important is it to have a Chamber of Commerce? What are their principal aims? In particular, do you see a role for a chamber in the rebuilding of the Palisades? A lot of people don't know that the Palisades had a robust Chamber of Commerce, and maybe you can enlighten us about its activities and ideas.
Of what the chamber did in the past?
Yeah, and who belonged to the chamber? What was its makeup?
Well, the chamber had a director who was Arnie Wishneck, and of course there was two others before him. When I first started on the board, and of course there was a board which was made up of business people, and a lot of those business people also lived in the community. Mort Farborough lived in the community. Oh my goodness, I think most everyone on the board probably lived in the Palisades as well as owning a business. And I think that was one of the things that was wonderful about the chamber, is that it was merged between business and community. And I felt that the most important part of the chamber was to help Palisades businesses meet their backyard community. That's why we created so many events. We had a wonderful Moonlight Madness, which the businesses opened up on a Friday night. They offered wine and hors d'oeuvres, and you would stroll through all the streets and have a good time and maybe buy some things that were on sale. We had the Spring Fling. We had the car show. My goodness, the huge car show that we had back in the day when we closed down Swarthmore, all the streets. But then we consolidated the car show into just local Palisades car owners with a community expo, and we had 35 booths of residents or people who were chamber members, and always music, music all the time. I mean, we had 3 to 4 events every year,
Wow.
and yeah.
Well, thank you. You could see that there's probably going to be a role for a chamber in the new.
I would inject
I hope so.
if the chamber, when the town is resurrected, the business district is back on its feet in a couple of years, that the only way it's going to succeed is for the businesses in Caruso's development to participate in the chamber. There were 30 or 40 businesses there. Only 1 or 2 of them ever joined the chamber. So the next generation of business people, they have to get the people at the Caruso's development involved.
Yeah, I think instead of a chamber, because the chamber has rolled into the Malibu Chamber, I think a merchant association would be a good start for a new organization to do that and to bring all the businesses back together. And I'd like to see them bring back the brick and mortar. I want to see more family businesses that we have lost, like Vanessa's family.
Well, that leads to a question that I see is for Vanessa. How perfect. I understand, Vanessa, that you intend to rebuild. Can you tell us anything about your plans?
We are full speed ahead. We are absolutely going to rebuild. We are working with our landlord, John Wilson, who's him and his family have always been amazing to us. 40 years. He's been, through it with us, supported through COVID. He's been great, and he intends on rebuilding. We intend on rebuilding. It's going to be a little bit of a long process to clean up and bring it back to its original glory, but our intention is to come back 100%.
No, thank you. Thank you. Another question for you, Vanessa, quickly. This questioner asks, what is Vanessa's vision for rebuilding the Marquez commercial neighborhood?
So, the Marquez owners, we're all friends. We've all known each other for several decades, and we, through this tragedy, have become even closer, I believe, and are in constant contact with each other and fully intend on bringing back that Marquez community that was there, because it really served a function. It was a running joke for a lot of people, and we even laughed about it. But if you were, east of Temescal, it was a whole other country.
Yeah, right.
And you almost needed a passport to come to our side of the Palisades.
I felt it.
And it was kind of one of those jokes that people would say, oh my, I haven't been here in so long, and oh, that's great, thank you for coming back, thank you. Where did you move? And they said, well, we moved to Amalfi. And I said, like in Italy, Amalfi, or just the street? Okay, all right, okay. So, and it was that type of thing, but that Marquez neighborhood, Ronnie's Cleaners and the nail salon and the liquor store. And then we had the karate studio that opened up, and a toy store with the Gray Dragon. And, we had these great places that really served the community. You had Knowles Pharmacy, who's been there for 35 years. You had the vet, you had Paws and Claws. I mean, this was a bustling community. And then, you had the Oasis, which did all of the massage therapy and the essential oils, Palisades Glass, Palisades Plumbing. These are places that have been serving our community for decades. I mean, collectively, we probably have 500 years between us.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
That's hopeful. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're forging forward, and I think a lot of the landlords are also on the same beat, and I think that we are going to do everything we can as tenants and community members to bring it back to its original glory. I think that's the only way that we bring the Palisades back. I must have talked to 1,000 people during this tragedy, and my one thing to everybody, to the press, to the community, to my friends, to customers, whoever would listen to me, is come back.
Yeah.
The
Thank you.
Palisades doesn't work if you don't come back to it.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to ask one more question to Bill. How does a newspaper serve the community? Give us an example of a story that made a big impact.
Well, we really focused on the Pacific Palisades and all the issues in town that were constantly coming up via the community council and other organizations. And one of the biggest stories that we covered for many years was in the late 90s when the Getty Villa wanted to expand. They announced a major expansion of the museum, which is in Pacific Palisades, not in Malibu. Malibu always tries to claim it, but it's in Pacific Palisades. I'll make that point. And there was a lot of opposition, including people on this panel. We were on opposite sides. But the feeling was by neighbors of the Getty Villa, they were really worried that it was going to become over commercialized. The plan was to build a cafe, to build an amphitheater for outdoor theater, to build a larger parking lot. And the fears were justified in that it was going to be too commercial, too much noise, and not appropriate for where it is in that Castle Lamar neighborhood. But the Post, our editorially, Libby and I took the view that the Getty was following the law, and that it would benefit everybody to have a much larger modern museum there. And fortunately, the Getty set up a community meeting, a community organization of neighbors, and they all met regularly. And they hashed out their differences. They hashed out the ambitions of the Getty versus the defensive issues of the neighbors. But they worked out a peace agreement, which is probably unheard of nowadays for both sides to get together in this nature. And subsequently, over the years, it's proved to be very a great partnership. Even the people who used to oppose the Getty now admit that they've handled it very well. So that was a big story, and fortunately, we were on the right side of the issue as it developed.
Yeah. One last question. Randy, you've whet our appetite for more history of the Palisades. Are there books you might recommend? And then a follow-up, does the Historical Society have an archive? Is it available for public use?
There are no books in print at the moment that are, comprehensive about the Palisades. But you can get Pacific Palisades, Where the Mountain Meets the Sea by Betty Lou Young. Comes up secondhand all the time. We also have books on Santa Monica Canyon, Where the Mountains Meet the Sea. And that it is on eBay a lot. We have several other books which are very rare and rarely come up. One is on Rustic Canyon, and that is thousands of dollars if it ever comes up. As far as the Historical Society is in the act of putting together their archive, almost everything survived the fire. That's sort of a miracle. And so what we're going to do is organize it, try to get a partner. That's what we're going to be working on most. An institution to be the ultimate receiver of it. if we had actually gone to the library or to the Methodist Church, those two entities burned down. So in a way, we're lucky that we hadn't settled into one place or another. So we're the Historical Society already is working on this.
Thank you. I'd like to end the Q&A with a comment from Monica Marquez. Monica Marquez lives in the Canyon. She is, of course, of the Marquez family. And she says, not a question, but a message from the heart to let you know that the Marquez family grieves with you and offers hope and good wishes in your recovery. Thank you, Monica. And thank you all for your thoughtful questions. I can't tell you how many are still on my list over here that just goes on and on and on and on and on. And that's a lovely thought. And it shows how much this town means to me, to you. And we hope for a future of optimism. Now I'd like to introduce Donna Vaccarino, acting president of the Pacific Palisades Historical Society. Welcome, Donna.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. That was truly extraordinary. Many thanks to the Santa Monica Conservancy for this event tonight, co-hosting it with the Historical Society, and to Libby Motika and Steve Loper for bringing us all together in such an expert way this evening. And many thanks to Randy. It's always wonderful to hear your stories, and Roberta, Vanessa, and Bill for sharing their views of our historic memories of the Palisades. The Historical Society's primary mission as a 501c3 corporation is for the advancement of education, the documentation and preservation of historical material, objects, and buildings of Pacific Palisades, and the Rancho Boca de Santa Monica, the preservation of our historical legacy and memory of the community, which of course we were able to share this evening with you. We now find ourselves in contemplating and searching for a new path to continue this historic legacy of the Palisades, to find a new sense of community. From boom to bliss to catastrophe, the Palisades will continue to evolve. But we have a chance to ask what we want to become now, and how do we want to define our legacy going forward. I know we all have different visions of the future, but there is one thing we all share in common, and that is where we are all going to spend the rest of our lives. So please stay in touch. Visit our website. If you love looking at wonderful photographs, we have lots that you can peruse there at pacificpalisadeshistory.org. So thank you for being with us. And at this time, I would like to introduce Caitlin Driscoll, who's the Executive Director of the Santa Monica Conservancy.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Driscoll. I am the Executive Director of the Santa Monica Conservancy, and thank you so much, Donna. And thank you to all of you who have made it possible, and this show was just terrific. To our guests tonight who have shared your thoughts and your memories, the stories of the Palisades, bringing the community to life for us tonight, and a reminder of how important and special Pacific Palisades is. To our hosts, Libby Motika and Steve Loper, who have produced this extraordinary episode, and to Adina Bernheimer, behind the scenes production assistant. We cannot do this without you, Adina. Most importantly, to the hundreds of viewers tonight, including here at the Shotgun House. We have a little watch party. So say hello, everyone. Thank you. And I want to just say, I know you all are from the Palisades are going through extraordinary issue. And we just want to say that I hope you found some solace in the friendship and the kinship I think we're all sharing here tonight as well. And for those of you who can and want to help our Palisades neighbors, this is a list of other leading organizations participating in various aspects of assistance and reconstruction. including the Pacific Palisades Community Council, Resilient Palisades, Friends of the Palisades Library, who you've heard so much about tonight, the Palisades Forestry Committee of the Pacific Palisades Community Council. We heard tonight how important the trees and the landscape of the Palisades is, and the Palisades Forestry Committee is working to restore that. The American Legion, Pali Strong, the Park Advisory Board, and the Pacific Palisades Residents Association. And we'll be sure to share this slide with you when we send out the link for the tape of this show after we're finished. A fear of lost cultural heritage is shared among artists and historians, preservationists, and cultural workers across the Los Angeles area. The Pacific Palisades Preservation Coalition was initiated by artist and co-founder at Shea Max a Dorothea, Dr. Brigitte Nicole Grice, a native Palisadian advocating for the future of the Pacific Palisades. This is a group of local arts and culture organizations that have united to honor and preserve cultural and architectural heritage after the fires. At our core, the Santa Monica Conservancy is a heritage conservation organization. This program has reached the highest attendance we have had for a mosaic, and the outreach in the community is just showing how many people do care about our history. So thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. We are honored to have had the opportunity to tell the stories of our community and our Palisades neighbors tonight. Thank you again.